Hi, what I'd like to do today is to present a reading of a book by Fredric Jameson titled Sartre, The Origins of a Style. This is actually the second time I'm shooting this video. I was having problems with the audio on the Mac. In any case, there are a few reasons why I am presenting this particular text. One, because the language that Fredric Jameson deploys, which he takes up to analyze Sartre, and he begins with No Exit, one of his most famous plays, is, I think, significant for the questions which contemporary philosophy is investigating, such as the question of the subject, the nature of agency, what an act is, how does interpretation take place, and inquiries of that nature. Of course, there's a significant degree of interest of my own in this endeavor as a former literature student. And without any further introductions, allow me to begin reading. Chapter 1: The Problem of Acts. No exit is without what is ordinarily called action. The characters are no longer able to do anything. They have done it all before the curtain rises, and they are obliged to spend the time of the play simply thinking about what has already been done once and for all, without being able to add to it. This is why, in a kind of gross common sense distinction based on an entertainment aesthetic, such plays have been described as idea plays. Yet the ideas of this philosopher's play are wholly different in quality from the thoughts developed in the philosophical works. There also acts are analyzed, are raised to a meaning, but this phenomenological analysis is expansive, centrifugal. It attempts to enlarge itself with more and more detail until the act has been shown to be the mere central complex of a large and intrinsically intelligible unity, and its isolation to be illusory. The characters of this play think about their pasts in the other direction. They want to reduce the things they have done to mere examples of qualities, to be able to fix names and adjectives to them. The meanings they are looking for have a solid and indispensable core of language. The source of these meanings is popular everyday value judgment, bravery, cowardice, goodness, evil, mutually exclusive alternatives, so that a character like Garcin is imprisoned in his very thought about himself and his life. He faces a kind of schoolbook proposition about himself, that he is a coward, and the only choice he seems to have is to affirm it or deny it. The level on which such problems are posed is, in appearance, much more primitive than the kinds of consciousness registered by earlier modern writers, and the only possible expression of such a dilemma seems to be talk, the posing of various alternatives, or the settling for one or the other of them. The image around which the play is organized, the notion of a hell or limbo of this kind, suggests another possible relationship to the past at the same time that it eliminates it as a real issue. Garcin is painfully aware that if he had lived, he would have been able to do something different. He would have had at least the possibility of setting an act of a new quality against the repetitive examples of his past weakness. This act would in no sense have changed the facts of his life, would not even have permitted us to forget about them. It would have merely rearranged them, organized them in a new way, and the weight of the new act would have gradually swung these older facts out of the pattern of simple cowardice and lent them the value of mere passing errors, accidents, corrected failings. This suggests that the past can be described in two different ways. It is that which can no longer be changed, which has passed out of our reach, which has passed out of reach, still felt as ourselves, but fixed forever. And yet, at the same time, it is constantly subject to change and renewal at our hands. Its meaning is as fluid as our freedom, and every new thing we do threatens to revalue it from top to bottom. The aspect of the past which is changeless is what Sartre calls our facticity. But it is only one way in which facticity manifests itself, along with the genetic problem, the genetic structure of our bodies, and the necessity for us to exist at a given moment of history in a given society. Although there is no reason why it should be this one rather than that, any more than there is any reason why our unique consciousness should inhabit a body of this particular shape and be born of these particular parents. Facticity is that core of being which resists any reduction to thought, to reasons. It is the necessity for every phenomena, no matter how intelligible it may be, to be at the same time absolutely unique. It is the necessity for us to be always in situation, without its making any difference what that situation may be. For us to always have a past, no matter what its contents are. Carson recognizes his past as his through the anxiety it causes him. But it is not his to alter any more than he can rearrange the bones of his face by thinking about it. We will come to see later just how heavy with consequence such an idea is for the work of art. Yet although the meaning of these brute irrevocable facts might be somehow altered by a new act, although no failure is enough to definitively rule out the possibility of change, but merely pushes it further into the future, there is no future in terms of the situation of the play, and Garson is dead. He is thus reduced to a purely contemplative attitude towards his own life. He is passive before it. He can only think about it, and in some ways the secret theme of the play is a kind of symbolic playing out of the opposition between a philosophy of knowledge and a philosophy of consciousness or action, between an impressionistic and an expressionistic aesthetic. Carson is left with nothing but psychological analysis of himself. He cannot act. He cannot change the facts. The only area of uncertainty accessible to him where he might find something to help him resolve his problem, one way or the other, is that of his motives. An extract from the play. Estelle, but you ought to remember, you must have had reasons for doing what you did. Carson, yes. Estelle, well. Carson, are they the real reasons? Estelle, annoyed. How complicated you are. Carson, I wanted to set an example. I had given it a lot of thought. Are those the real reasons? This importance of the motive is part of a dialectic of good and bad intentions that goes back at least as far as medieval Christian thought. But in it, the act is so thoroughly separated from its motive, which can be of another quality, that there is no way back from the motive to the act. The reason, or all the different possible ones, come loose from the act, fall into subjectivity, while the act remains resisting and impenetrable. Any of the motives seem to fit because there is nothing in the act itself that can stand in a privileged relationship to this one rather than that. The world of motivations becomes autonomous, a kind of self-sufficient mirage reflecting the solid world of facts upside down. And in this unreal psychological world, against the perspective of a past out of the reach of change, subjective decisions suddenly seem to enjoy far more authority than they did in real life. Garcin, Estelle, am I a coward? Estelle, how would I know, my love? I am not in your skin. You have to decide for yourself. Garcin, with a gesture of weariness, that's just what I don't manage to do. This suggestion of the possibility of a fiat, of a purely intellectual decision, settling the problem once and for all, is an optical illusion, brought on by the terms in which the problem has been posed. Not only is change impossible in the purely contemplative conditions of this limbo, but the very judgments themselves, bravery, cowardice, will not work from the inside. They are, in their very nature, the judgments of other people, fixed to the outside of the individual consciousness, with the verb to be. They suggest a convenient reduction of consciousness to a set of qualities or attributes, conveniences for the purpose of predicting behavior, parts of the describable nature of these things which are other people's for us. But such qualities are impossible to feel from the inside because consciousness never is anything, but is always action. Only when we gaze back at the feared similarity of all of the things we have done with each other does the impression of a kind of quality arise. But we do not feel it directly. We deduce its presence just as if we were looking at the acts of someone else. Yet the alienation of these characters is so complete that the judgments have been passionately interiorized, raised to absolutes before which in vain they try to justify themselves. Their lives after death are the most intense image of lives surrendered wholly into other people's hands, the hands of the living. And no single corner of their minds is safe from the autonomous categories of objective social values. It is at this point that the possibility of abandoning such worn-out categories suggests itself, that the possibility of a kind of authenticity arises. And it is at this point also that most of Sartre's work stop. Following this, we have a few further examples from Sartre's body of work, his oeuvre. But as far as the extract goes that I will read, I would like to end there. But I would also want to highlight why I think this passage is significant, beginning with its title, the problem of the problem of events. What precisely was it? Let's just have a look. It's titled The Event. That's the chapter. The section is called The Problem of Acts. Or chapter 1, The Problem of Acts. I guess there's a certain kind of not a dichotomy in as much as a turn, so to speak, that Jameson is trying to indicate here. That is the facticity which, or rather the historicity which allows an act to emerge, a phenomena, if you will, and the action that is entailed in the expression of it. And these two are not the same. There is a sense in which one is concrete, existing material reality, and the other is an action which is acting upon it. And yet there is a way in which how we cognize the situation itself becomes a fact for us. And it is within those circumstances that we express whatever it is that we try and do or say. This is a dilemma that does bring us to the question of agency, which philosophy does try to address most directly. And apart from that, and I think perhaps more significantly from a perhaps an artistic register, is the question of interpretation, as to how do we cognize and make sense of these events, if you will, around us. And I guess later at some point, or maybe there's something suggestive in the stage which Jameson draws from, the play No Exit, which is set in the afterlife, where characters talk about their past, that a certain kind of impasse in the historicity of a situation is indicated. But I guess any thematic evaluation regarding that would entail at least a further reading of the text, if not the play in its entirety. And I just wanted to provide you a sample of what Fredric Jameson's work is like. He is someone I appreciate very much for what it is that he has done and what he continues to do. Taught at Duke University for very many years, and he still writes. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to see more like it, please do mention it in the comments below. And if there are any suggestions that you would like to put forth regarding what we might broach, I would welcome them. Thank you very much. Have a very nice evening. Bye bye.